The boutique on Rodeo Drive wasn't just a store. It was a kingdom of luxury, a place where wealth met exclusivity. Every detail screamed sophistication, from the gleaming glass doors framed by white marble to the curated displays of diamond-studded jewelry and couture dresses. For the elite, it was a paradise. For others, it was an untouchable dream. And in this world of opulence, Helena reigned supreme. Helena, the boutique manager, had built her career on perfection. Tall and imposing, her sharp bob haircut and tailored pantsuit were as immaculate as the store she ruled. Every corner of the boutique reflected her philosophy. Exclusivity wasn't just about price. It was about image. She reminded her staff daily, "We're not just selling products. We're selling a dream. Protect the brand at all costs." That Tuesday began like any other. Soft classical music played in the background, and the scent of expensive leather filled the air. Helena stood by the entrance, her hawk-like eyes scanning every detail. The sparkle of the jewelry, the alignment of the handbags, and even the posture of her employees. Perfection wasn't just expected, it was demanded. The door chimed, breaking the serene rhythm. A tall woman entered, her oversized sunglasses hiding her eyes, a simple cream coat draped elegantly over her shoulders. Her presence was understated yet confident, a stark contrast to the boutique's usual clientele adorned in flashy designer wear. She paused, her fingers brushing lightly over a rack of silk scarves. Helena's trained instincts immediately flagged her as suspicious. She didn't belong. Was it the simplicity of her outfit, or the way she lingered a bit too long by the jewelry case? Either way, Helena knew she had to act. With a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, she approached the woman. "Ma'am, we have a private shopping appointment scheduled shortly. I'm afraid I'll need to ask you to leave." The woman lowered her sunglasses, revealing piercing blue eyes that held Helena's gaze for a moment too long. There was something familiar about her, but Helena couldn't place it. "I assure you, I won't be long," the woman said, her tone calm and composed. "I just want to look around." Helena's smile hardened. "I'm sorry, but this is a private establishment. If you'd like to book an appointment, we'd be happy to accommodate you another time." The woman's expression remained unreadable. Without another word, she slid her sunglasses back on and turned, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she left. Helena watched her go, a smug sense of accomplishment washing over her. She had done her job, protected the brand, but something about the encounter lingered. There was a quiet power in the woman's demeanor, a confidence that unnerved Helena. Shaking off the feeling, she returned to her station, certain she had done the right thing. The rest of the day unfolded in the usual routine. Helena meticulously inspected a shipment of couture dresses, ensuring every hemline was flawless before they were displayed. She adjusted the lighting on the main jewelry case, making sure each diamond sparkled just right. For her, the boutique was more than a store. It was a stage, and she was the director. Yet, as the day turned to evening, the memory of the mysterious woman crept into Helena's thoughts. There was something unsettling about her, a quiet intensity, as if she were someone accustomed to respect, someone who didn't hear no often. Helena brushed the thought aside. People came and went, many trying to fake their way into this exclusive world. By the time she locked up for the night, the woman was still on her mind. Helena shook her head, dismissing her lingering doubts. "Just another wannabe," she muttered, heading home. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a monumental mistake. The following morning, the boutique buzzed with its usual hum of exclusivity. Helena arrived early, her mind already focused on the day's tasks. But by mid-morning, whispers began rippling through the staff. Sophia, a young sales associate, approached Helena hesitantly. "Did you hear about the woman from yesterday?" she asked, her voice low but tinged with excitement. Helena raised an eyebrow. "What about her?" Sophia glanced around before leaning in. A customer said it was Melania Trump. Helena froze, the name hitting her like a thunderclap. She stared at Sophia, the words echoing in her mind. "Melania Trump?" she repeated, her tone skeptical. Sophia nodded. "Yes. They showed me a picture on their phone. It was definitely her." For a moment, Helena's world tilted. Had she really dismissed one of the most recognizable women in the world? A wave of unease swept over her, but she quickly masked it. It doesn't matter who she was, Helena said firmly. Rules are rules. We can't let just anyone wander in without an appointment. But even as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her. This wasn't just anyone. This was Melania Trump, and Helena had treated her like an intruder. By afternoon, the whispers among the staff had grown into a full-blown buzz. Customers began murmuring too. She's so elegant, one said while examining a handbag. I can't believe someone would treat her like that. I heard she walked out without saying a word, another chimed in. So classy, but you just know she was furious. Helena overheard these comments, her stomach twisting into knots. The boutique thrived on reputation, and this incident threatened to unravel everything she had worked so hard to build. As the day wore on, Helena's unease deepened. That evening, as she scrolled through her phone, her worst fears were confirmed. A vague but damning post had surfaced on social media, describing the incident. Though the boutique wasn't named outright, the comments were buzzing with speculation. People were tagging brands, trying to pinpoint the location, and Helena knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. Helena tossed her phone aside, her confidence crumbling. It'll blow over, she muttered, but the gnawing feeling in her chest said otherwise. And she was right to worry. The storm was just beginning, and it would soon engulf everything she held dear. By the following morning, the story of Melania Trump's unwelcome exit from the boutique had begun to ripple through the community. The buzz had spread faster than Helena had anticipated. Whispers of the incident reached every corner of the high-end retail world, and the boutique, once a temple of exclusivity, was now the subject of scandal. Helena arrived at the store that day, her usual calm demeanor shaken. The boutique was once her domain, a place where she had control over every detail, but now, a sense of vulnerability crept in. She walked through the doors with a sinking feeling in her stomach. The quiet hum of the store was different today, charged, as though the air itself knew something had changed. Her staff seemed to be walking on eggshells. Their eyes flicked nervously to her whenever they passed by, exchanging whispers when they thought she wasn't looking. Helena tried to ignore the discomfort that surrounded her. She had to maintain control. After all, this was still her store. But as the day went on, the whispers only grew louder. One of the sales associates, Clara, approached her during a quiet lull in the afternoon. "Did you hear about the news?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Helena tensed. "What about it?" Clara hesitated before speaking again. "I saw it on TV last night. A news outlet picked up the story about what happened yesterday. They didn't name the boutique, but people are starting to figure it out. Customers have been asking about it all morning." Helena's heart sank. The carefully constructed world she had so painstakingly built was now teetering on the edge of collapse. She forced a smile. "It'll blow over," she said. But even as the words left her lips, she knew they rang hollow. The damage had been done, and there was no erasing the stain of the incident. Still, Helena was determined not to show weakness. She threw herself into her work, overseeing every detail with the same meticulous precision as before. But her thoughts kept returning to the woman she had dismissed so callously, the woman who might very well have been Melania Trump. What if she came back? What would Helena do? Her fear became a reality sooner than she expected. It happened on a Friday afternoon. The boutique was at its busiest, with a mix of well-dressed patrons browsing the racks and employees hustling to keep up with the demand. Helena stood near the cash register, exuding her usual air of authority, when the glass doors suddenly swung open. The familiar sound of heels echoed through the boutique. Helena's breath caught in her throat as she looked up. There she was, Melania Trump, walking through the door as if nothing had happened. Her presence was commanding, every step she took radiating confidence. This time, she wasn't alone. Behind her followed a small entourage, a group of security personnel, a woman holding a sleek leather briefcase, and another figure who appeared to be a publicist. Outside the boutique, several photographers lingered, their cameras poised and ready. The air shifted immediately, the usual calm atmosphere replaced with a sudden, charged energy. Helena's heart pounded in her chest as Melania's eyes met hers. There was no anger in the gaze that held her captive, only quiet control. It was as though Melania was assessing her, every movement calculated, every detail deliberate. Helena stood frozen, rooted to the spot, unable to speak. "Good afternoon," Melania said, her voice calm but firm. "I'd like to look around now. Is that allowed?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of its implications. Every eye in the boutique turned toward Helena, who felt the gaze of every customer and every staff member pressing down on her. The silence was suffocating. Helena swallowed hard, struggling to maintain her composure. "Of course," she managed, stepping aside to allow Melania and her entourage to pass. She tried to mask the anxiety bubbling up inside her, but she could feel her grip on the situation slipping. As Melania moved through the boutique, her entourage shadowed her every step. There was no rush, no urgency in her movements. She moved with the kind of confidence that only comes from true power, taking the time to inspect the displays, to run her fingers over the fabrics, and to study the price tags with a discerning eye. Helena watched her, unable to look away. It was clear that Melania wasn't just shopping. She was evaluating the boutique, every detail of its offerings. Helena couldn't help but feel that this was an assessment of her professionalism, her judgment, and her handling of the situation that had unfolded just days earlier. Melania approached the jewelry case, and the boutique's entire atmosphere shifted. The staff stood at attention, unsure of how to behave, but unwilling to be caught slacking. The customers seemed to hold their breath, as though they too understood the magnitude of the moment. "May I see that piece?" Melania asked, her gaze falling on a stunning diamond necklace. Clara, one of the junior sales associates, stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly as she retrieved the necklace and placed it on the counter. "Of course, ma'am," she said, her voice wavering with nervousness. Melania studied the necklace for a moment, her expression unreadable. She turned to Helena, who was standing nearby, her pulse racing as she tried to maintain some semblance of control. "What do you think?" Melania asked, her voice soft but firm. Helena's throat went dry. She wasn't sure if it was the question itself or the sheer presence of Melania, but it took her a moment to respond. "It's a beautiful piece," she said, her voice sounding hollow, even to her own ears. "One of our finest." Melania nodded slowly, her expression still impassive. Then she turned to Clara, who had just finished wrapping up the transaction. "I'll take it," she said, her voice as calm and assured as before. She slid a sleek black credit card across the counter, and Clara completed the transaction with a mixture of awe and hesitation. Helena watched, her heart sinking further into her chest. She had misjudged this woman so completely, but the lesson wasn't over. As Clara handed Melania the necklace, Melania turned to her with a smile. "Thank you for your help today," she said warmly. "You've been wonderful." Clara smiled, her nervousness melting away. Melania's words were kind, genuine even, and in that moment, it was clear that this encounter wasn't just about the necklace. It was a lesson in grace and humility. Melania then turned back to Helena, her expression still calm but carrying a weight that was impossible to ignore. "It's important," Melania said, her tone quiet but piercing, "to treat everyone with respect, especially when you don't know who they are." The words hit Helena like a punch to the gut. The boutique fell silent, every eye on her as she stood frozen, unable to respond. The weight of Melania's reprimand hung heavy in the air, and in that moment, Helena realized how deeply she had failed. After a few tense moments, Melania gestured to her publicist, who handed her a small envelope. "This is for your staff," Melania said, extending it toward Helena. Helena hesitated, but only for a moment, before she took the envelope. It was heavier than she expected, and when she opened it later, she would discover a check for an extraordinary sum, a gesture of generosity that contrasted sharply with the reprimand she had just received. With that, Melania turned and walked toward the door, her entourage following close behind. Photographers outside captured every moment as she exited, and the boutique remained eerily quiet in her wake. Helena stood there, her mind racing. What had just happened? What had she learned? But the lesson was far from over. The days that followed Melania's visit felt like a blur to Helena. The boutique, once the epicenter of her confidence, now felt more like a place of reckoning. Each corner seemed to echo with the unspoken lesson Melania had imparted. The visit had left her shaken, but strangely, it also began to stir something deeper within her. A quiet realization was beginning to settle in her mind, a shift in how she viewed her role, the boutique, and the very essence of luxury she had once defined so rigidly. Helena's pride had been her armor for so long. She had built the boutique on her own terms, surrounded herself with people who understood her vision, and commanded respect through sheer force of will. But now, in the wake of Melania's visit, it all felt shallow, fragile. How had she allowed herself to treat a potential client, a powerful, influential woman, so thoughtlessly? And why had it taken such a dramatic confrontation to shake her from her self-imposed pedestal? The boutique was still buzzing with the aftermath of the visit, but the tone had changed. Helena had seen the whispers, the glances exchanged between her staff and customers, the unspoken judgment that hung in the air. She wasn't just a businesswoman anymore. She was the subject of conversation, the one who had failed a test of character. Clara, the sales associate who had assisted Melania with the necklace, had been visibly transformed since the encounter. She was quieter now, more composed. Helena noticed how the young woman carried herself with an air of quiet confidence, something she hadn't seen before. It was as if Melania's subtle, yet powerful, words had planted a seed in Clara's mind, a seed that was now beginning to take root. Helena couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. But this wasn't just about Clara. It was about Helena's realization that the luxury world she had built was not just about selling expensive clothes or fine jewelry. It was about understanding the deeper connections between people, the unspoken bonds that existed between customer and seller, between those who walked into her boutique and the community she had cultivated. Melania hadn't just bought a necklace. She had bought into a lesson, a moment of personal growth for Helena that would resonate long after the transaction was complete. One evening, just as the boutique was about to close for the night, Helena decided to take action. She called a meeting with her staff, something she hadn't done in months. The room was filled with uncertainty as her employees gathered, wondering what was coming. Helena stood at the front, her usual commanding presence subdued but steady. "I want to apologize," she began, her voice steady but carrying a weight that surprised even her. "I've been so focused on the business, on the bottom line, that I've forgotten what truly matters. You all deserve respect, and I failed to show that, not just to Melania Trump, but to all of you." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Some of the employees exchanged uncertain glances, while others seemed to soften. But Helena pressed on. "I know we've always prided ourselves on creating an exclusive, high-end environment here," she continued. "But luxury isn't just about the products we sell. It's about the people we serve and the respect we show them. Each of you, every customer, and every person who walks through that door deserves to feel valued, no matter who they are." Her words seemed to hang in the air, and for the first time in a long time, Helena saw a shift in the room. Her staff members were listening, really listening. The walls of judgment that had risen since Melania's visit were slowly starting to crumble. "We will do better," Helena said firmly. "This boutique is not just about selling. It's about creating an experience, a space where people feel valued. That starts with each of you." The meeting ended on a note of cautious optimism. Helena knew this wouldn't be an easy change to implement, but it was a start. She began to think about the future of her boutique in a new light. She was no longer just focused on the glamour and exclusivity. Now, she was committed to building an environment of authenticity and respect, one customer at a time. Over the next few weeks, the shift began to show in small but noticeable ways. The staff was more attentive, more present with customers. There was a renewed energy in the store, an openness that had been lacking before. Helena worked tirelessly alongside her team, making sure every client felt valued. And then, one day, Melania returned. It wasn't an expected visit, and it wasn't for any special event. She walked into the boutique as if it were any other day, her entourage in tow, her calm presence filling the room. Helena's heart skipped a beat as she saw her. This time, However, she was ready. She had made changes, not only in how she ran the boutique, but in how she viewed herself and the people around her. "Good afternoon," Melania greeted. Her voice as composed as ever. She glanced around, as if surveying the space with the same calculating gaze she had shown on her last visit. Helena approached her, a sense of calm replacing the anxiety that once gripped her. "Welcome back," she said warmly. "It's a pleasure to have you here again." Melania smiled, the faintest hint of approval flickering in her eyes. "I can see things are different," she said, her gaze sweeping the boutique. "It's more welcoming." Helena nodded. "That's exactly what we're aiming for. We're here to provide an experience, one where every person who walks through these doors feels seen, heard, and respected." Melania's smile widened, and for a moment, Helena could almost see the weight of the unspoken lessons in her eyes. "I'm glad to hear it," she replied. They spoke briefly about the new arrivals in the boutique, and Melania selected a few pieces of jewelry to try on. As Helena assisted her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of quiet pride. The journey she had embarked on wasn't just about rebuilding the reputation of her boutique. It was about rebuilding herself. By the time Melania left, her presence was no longer a heavy weight, but a quiet acknowledgement of how far Helena had come. She had learned that true luxury wasn't about exclusivity for the sake of it. It was about connection, respect, and the ability to grow. As Melania walked out the door, Helena watched her go, a quiet smile forming on her lips. The boutique was no longer just a reflection of her ambition. It was a reflection of her transformation. And this time, when she looked around at her staff, she saw not just employees but partners in the journey ahead. Together, they would rebuild not just a brand, but a legacy that went beyond material wealth. A legacy built on respect, understanding, and the human connections that truly define luxury.